They always say trouble comes uninvited. Well, in my case, it came barreling over the north field at 7:40 a.m. on a Thursday in the form of a bright yellow Cat 320 excavator. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee. One of those mornings where the mist still clings to the treeline, birds haven't made up their mind whether the day is worth a damn, and the world feels a little bit like it belongs to you, until it doesn't. Then I heard it, steel and diesel chewing through the quiet, tearing up my peace like a bear rips open a tent. I live just on the outskirts of Willow County, Colorado. 14 acres officially surveyed, stamped, and recorded back in 1964. My grandfather deeded the place to me right before his mind wandered off for good. Out here, I've got a house I rebuilt with my own hands, a battered aluminum hangar full of tools, and a northern field I let grow wild. Part sanctuary, part buffer between me and suburbia. It's not much, but it's honest. Land with bones, land that remembers. By the time I made it to the north fence in my truck, those guys were already halfway through what used to be tall grass and a bunch of nervous ground nesting birds. The excavator's operator looked like someone who'd just punch in, punch out, no questions, no worries, just doing what he's told. Two more guys with tape measures and spray paint were busy carving out what looked suspiciously like the world's ugliest parking lot. I got out, boots crunching the stubble, and walked straight into their battlefield. "Shut it down," I yelled. The excavator died. The guy inside didn't even meet my eye, just shrugged like, "Hey man, not my circus." But then the foreman came over, clipboard, reflective vest, that dead-eyed HOA look, like he'd already made peace with the fact his job is ruining other people's days. "You can't be here during active site prep," he says, as if I'm trespassing on my own damn land. I pointed at the fence post, old, rusty, half swallowed by weeds, but still standing. "You're standing on private property, pal." "My property." He didn't even blink. Just flipped a page on his clipboard and held it out like a shield. "We have a service contract with Willow Pines HOA. This area is designated for community development." I couldn't help it, I laughed. Last I checked, it was designated for deer, hawks, and the occasional hermit, not your precious subdivision. He just gave me the smile, tight, bureaucratic, made of fine print and lies. So I told him real clear, "Get your machines off my land, or I'll call the sheriff." He just stood there, so I did. The deputies showed up, a couple of young guys fresh out of academy, looking like they just finished football season. They walked the line with me, checked the clipboard, nodded like they cared, and then gave me the bad news. "Mr. Drake, this is a civil boundary dispute. It's not criminal trespass. You'll need to take it to court. So, let me get this straight. You could just show up, dig a hole in my land, and the law shrugs?" "We're not saying it's fine," they said, "just that it's a dispute." They offered to write a report. No arrests, no orders, just a good luck. By noon, the machines were off my field, mostly because I parked myself in front of them until they left, but the ruts they left behind would break your axle. That afternoon, I wrote a cease and desist, quoted every state property code I could find, attached a copy of my deed, and laminated 3 private property, no access, no HOA jurisdiction signs. Hammered them in just off the property line. For good measure, I posted a copy on the Willow Pines HOA bulletin board, too. That night, my phone rang twice, once from a block number I ignored, and once from a Cheryl, who politely told me I was being unneighborly. I told her to watch her step by the fence. Some of those stakes aren't rounded. It wasn't just the nerve of these people. It was their certainty. The pure assumption that in used land is up for grabs. That if your field looks empty, it must be for the neighborhood to decorate. HOA types don't knock on doors. They print maps, hold secret votes, and when they want what you have, they just move in. I figured that'd be it. Some signs, a stern letter, and a little daylight confrontation. Boy, was I wrong. 3 days later, I find a handmade poster zip-tied to my gate. Live in a community, be part of it. Spray-painted cheerful blue and yellow, signatures all over it. I recognized maybe half the names. The rest were the types who wave from their SUVs but never make eye contact. That afternoon, a crowd gathered along the sidewalk north of my field. Lawn chairs, juice boxes, cookies. A woman with a megaphone read from a community resolution, demanding I reconsider my stance for the greater good. And there she was, Karen Huntley, HOA president, in her salmon pantsuit and aviators, looking like General MacArthur storming the beach. Mr. Drake, this land is an opportunity to unify Willow Pines, she shouted. I raised my coffee thermos in salute and called back, I already contributed by not letting a bulldozer roll through a deer nest. She smiled, the kind to give a dog before a trip to the vet. That evening, my private property signs vanished. Not blown down, just gone, zip ties clipped. I replaced them with steel plates and postal diggers. Next morning, I woke to the stink of chemicals. Someone had sprayed, "Hermit, get out or grow up," in red enamel across my eastern fence. Scrubbed it for an hour, put up motion lights, filed another sheriff's report. They shrugged. No cameras, no witnesses. Now strange cars started parking near the edge of my land, too curious for comfort. One guy in a windbreaker paced my boundary with a tablet, tapping away. Said he was collecting feedback. I gave him mine. He didn't stick around. The HOA ramped up. They mailed out a glossy pamphlet to every house but mine. Together we grow, with a mock-up of a splash pad, gazebo, picnic tables, all photoshopped right on my north field. Proposed site pending alignment. Yeah, right? I call an old buddy from my Army engineering days who's now a security consultant. We set up 5 trail cameras, motion-sensitive cloud upload. Let him try. Then the HOA fired their next shot. A formal letter accusing me of violating the spirit of neighborhood cooperation and threatening a legal review of boundary inconsistencies. My gut turned to stone. They weren't just being annoying. They were laying the groundwork for a boundary challenge. I gathered every scrap I had, deeds, maps, notarized records, even old drone footage. I'd never been so glad I was the sort to hoard paperwork. Still, this wasn't about negotiation. They wanted to make an example out of me. I felt it building, a storm with teeth, slow but relentless. And right in the middle was Karen Huntley, all righteous indignation and practice smiles. It didn't take long. One day, a thick white envelope arrived. The HOA was suing me for obstruction of community development, malicious interference, and my favorite, violation of the cooperative spirit. But the real dagger? They claimed my northern field's boundary was legally ambiguous. Now, they wanted a judge to redraw the map. I called a law firm I trusted, and they put me with Brett Sutton, polished Bluetooth in his ear, more neck tease than convictions. Classic HOA overreach, he said, scanning my deed. They want to establish dominion through ambiguity. We can beat this. He filed motions, told me to avoid my neighbors, and kept things moving mostly. But something fell off. Sutton always waved off my questions about the excavator damage, never cared for the trail cam footage, and when I showed him HOA members holding a prayer circle on my land, he just laughed, said, "You don't want to look hostile to community values." "Community values don't include trespassing," I shot back. He just shrugged. Then the court hit me with a temporary injunction, said I couldn't interfere with approved community enhancement efforts until the case was settled. That meant construction could keep going. Sutton called it just a hiccup. Judges lean conservative on land use. So I watched the HOA pour concrete for their pavilion right through my nesting grounds. One night, fueled by cheap scotch and suspicion, I scoured HOA board meeting records. That's when I found it, Brett Sutton's name, listed as a consulting legal advisor for the HOA's Land Acquisition Committee months before he agreed to represent me. I nearly laughed, almost. Next morning, I dropped the printouts on his desk. Care to explain? Sutton just leaned back, steepled his fingers, and smiled like a fox. Technically, I'm not on retainer for them anymore. But sure, I know Karen. Small town. I walked out, fired him, and filed a complaint with the state bar. By afternoon, I'd hired a new lawyer, Danielle Rowe, recommended by another Army buddy. Danielle didn't smile, didn't flinch at the file. Classic sabotage, she said. He was setting you up to lose. They're not just after your land. They want to make an example of you. Well, I said, let's make an example out of them. First stop, the State Cadastral Archive, old building, dusty files, coffee that tastes like regret. Buried in a folder was my golden ticket. The 1964 county-stamped survey map. No ambiguity, my land. End of story. Next, I hired a private surveyor, Leslie Grant. No HOA ties, tough as railroad spikes. She ran 3D scans, drone imaging, satellite overlays, and every record matched up. If they claim ambiguity, they're lying, she told me. But Leslie soon called, voice tight. She had a visit from Karen, friendly advice that siding with me could cost her county contracts. She handed me a recording of Karen trying to lean on her. Use it however you want, Leslie said. I don't play like that. That went straight into the evidence pile. Then, as I was installing floodlights, a woman showed up, jeans, boots, press badge. Gina Morelli, Colorado Sentinel. Been following Willow Pines, HOA. Your story caught my eye. We sat in my kitchen. I showed her the lawsuit, trail cam footage, the audio. This isn't a property dispute, she said. It's a land grab disguised as civic virtue. She handed me her card. If you get anything internal, call me. That night, I got an email. You didn't hear this from me. Attached, board minutes, budget spreadsheets, emails between Sutton and Karen, months before Sutton took my case. With Brett handling him, it should be a clean process. He won't know until it's over. I had my mole. Now I had everything. Deeds, maps, recordings, whistleblower files. Court day came. I showed up in my only press shirt. Danielle was cool as a stone, prepped for battle. Opposite us, Karen, smug legal team in navy suits. The judge called the hearing. Karen's side painted me as a stubborn hermit, clinging to empty land. They presented a survey map that magically appeared, showing ambiguous boundaries. Danielle stood, voice calm as the Rockies. Your Honor, that map is a forgery. She handed over my real documents. The original deed, the 1964 map, Leslie's 3D scan, then hit play on the audio of Karen intimidating Leslie. Dead silence. Danielle brought out the affidavit from our mole, Riley, testifying that Sutton had deliberately delayed my filings, advised the HOA on pressure tactics, and lied to me. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is this the same Brett Sutton who represented the defendant? Danielle, yes, Your Honor. We moved for sanctions. Leslie testified, showing how the HOA's new map was doctored and the trail cam footage caught HOA volunteers, Karen included, removing my signs at night. Danielle sat down, job done. The judge was having none of the HOA's excuses. I see no ambiguity here. I see a private landowner railroaded by an association with inflated authority and disregard for property law. She adjourned, but we knew. 2 weeks later, same courtroom, same judge. This court finds in favor of Mr. Trevor Drake. The land in question has always belonged to the defendant. Willow Pines HOA is ordered to cease all activities, remove all structures, and issue a formal retraction. Karen sat stone-faced. Then came the hammer, evidence of fraudulent intent, document forgery, legal sabotage. The judge referred Karen for criminal charges and Sutton to the state bar. Damages, $1.2 million for legal costs and restoration. I wasn't sure what emotional harm was worth, but I knew fixing that field would take more than grass seed. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. Reporters, neighbors, some who'd never met my eye before. One came up and said, "Didn't think you'd win, but I'm glad you did." I just nodded. That evening, I watched city workers rip out the fake pavilion signs. The foundation was already cracking. I sipped my coffee and listened to the wind in the trees, the way it was before this mess. First thing I did, bought a new gate, steel, solar-powered, could stop a moose or an HOA golf cart. Then planted a row of Rocky Mountain junipers along the field. Symbolic, sure, but felt right. That Saturday, I saw Karen one last time. Hoodie, sunglasses, staring at my private property sign. She left in a beat-up sedan, and no one's seen her since. Brett Sutton lost his license, made the local paper. Riley, my mole, quit and joined a GIS startup fighting shady HOAs. He and Leslie are working on a transparency initiative. And Gina? Her article went viral, followed by a documentary. People started writing me letters, telling their own stories. One guy said he was naming his dog Trevor. I told him, only if it bites lawyers. But the best moment? One quiet Thursday, I was checking the fence, and a little kid with skinned knees called out, "You're the guy with the land." "That's me. My dad says you stop the bad people." I nodded. He kicked his ball over the fence. I tossed it back. "Just this once." He grinned and ran. I stood there listening to the wind in the junipers. No engines, no protests, no fake pamphlets. Just land, mine again, and a kind of peace you don't appreciate until someone tries to steal it. Let me ask you, where do you draw the line between community and control? What's justice worth if you don't fight for it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if you've ever had to stand your ground, I want to hear your story.